Welcome to the Explainer. So, here's a wild stat. Within just 24 hours, your brain is going to naturally dump up to 70% of what you learned today. Crazy, right? But stick with me, because today we are taking a deep dive straight into the architecture of your mind to fix exactly that. We're unpacking the science of unforgettable learning. Look, we've all been there, trying to absorb massive amounts of information for a test, a big presentation at work, or maybe just a new hobby you're obsessed with. And then, poof, it just slips away. Well, today we're digging into the actual research to show you exactly how to make knowledge stick in your brain for good. Let's get into it.
Okay, let's dive into this. Tell me if this sounds familiar. Have you ever spent grueling hours studying a topic, literally burning the midnight oil, reading chapter after chapter, only to wake up the very next morning feeling like your mind is a total blank? Man, it is just incredibly frustrating. You put in the time, you put in the heavy lifting, but the retention, it's just not there when you actually need it.
If that hit a little too close to home, I need you to realize something super important right off the bat. You are not lazy, and you absolutely do not have a bad memory. I promise. The real problem here, the thing that's been quietly sabotaging your learning, is that most of us have been relying on the exact same broken, ineffective study methods our entire lives. Honestly, your memory isn't broken, your toolkit is. So in this explainer, we're going to tear down those bad habits and rebuild a powerful memory architecture from scratch. We'll be hitting 5 key areas: the illusion of learning, timing and active retrieval, connecting and simplifying ideas, brain biology, and finally, the power of story.
Section 1. The illusion of learning. Why feeling productive just isn't enough.
All right, so most of us fall into this one very specific trap when we're trying to learn something new. We read the same page again and again and again, just crossing our fingers that the words will magically stick. And hey, rereading feels super productive, right? You've highlighted half the textbook in neon yellow, you feel like you're doing the work. But the science, the research actually shows that rereading is one of the absolute least effective study methods out there. Contrast that with the absolute superpower of just closing the book. When you shut the book and ask yourself, wait, what do I actually remember right now? You're forcing your brain to work. You're making it sweat a little and dig for that information.
And that brings us to a massively fundamental concept: active recall. Basically, active recall means forcing your brain to retrieve information without peeking at your source material. It is the ultimate proof of true understanding. Think about it. If you can't explain a concept out loud without glancing down at your notes, well, you haven't truly learned it yet. Your brain just remembers stuff so much better when it's forced to actively hunt for it, rather than just passively soaking it in.
Section 2. Timing and active retrieval. Hacking the forgetting curve.
So we know it's a biological fact that your brain is wired to naturally forget information over time. But guess what? We can totally beat this system, and this brilliantly illustrates how. If you strategically review a subject right on the edge of forgetting it, that memory becomes dramatically stronger. It's like a muscle. So instead of a random review, you want to follow a schedule kind of like this. Study the material on day 1, then hit it again on day 3, then day 7, day 14, and finally day 30.
This technique is called spaced repetition, and it's an absolute game changer. It proves that instead of cramming for 5 agonizing hours in a single frantic day, you are way better off spreading that same amount of time out. Each of those spaced-out reviews actually takes less time, but the compound effect? It creates massive, long-term retention. It's really no coincidence that this exact method, often using flashcard apps like Anki, is the secret weapon elite medical students use to memorize thousands of incredibly complex anatomical facts. Section 3. Connect and simplify ideas. Building webs of knowledge.
Now you might be wondering, what about complex ideas? Well, our brains are notorious for dropping random, isolated facts. To counter this, we use something called the Feynman Technique. This is a remarkably simple but honestly pretty humbling test. It goes like this. Can you explain your topic using incredibly simple words as if you were talking to a 10-year-old? If they start yawning, look confused, and walk away, yeah, you probably don't understand the complexities of it well enough yourself.
So here's exactly how you put this into action. Step 1, start explaining the concept simply, either out loud or on a piece of paper. Step 2 is inevitable, you're going to get stuck. You'll find a gap in your knowledge, but hey, that's a good thing. Step 3, go straight back to your source material and relearn those specific missing pieces. And finally, step 4, try that simple explanation again. The actual act of teaching forces your brain to take disorganized, messy information and snap it into a clear, logical structure.
But beyond just simplifying, you've got to connect ideas.
Like we said, the human brain loves connections, meaning random, floating facts are always in danger of being tossed out. So let's say you have to memorize a super dry historical date, like the year 1776. Don't just stare at the number on a page. Connect it to a vivid image of the Founding Fathers, or maybe a scene from a movie you absolutely love. By creating these contextual anchors, you're literally building robust neural pathways. The more connections you string around a fact, the stronger and way more accessible that memory becomes later on.
Moving on to Section 4, Brain Biology and Deep Focus, Fueling the Memory Engine. All right, we have to address the classic student strategy, pulling an all-nighter. So many people stay awake all night before a big exam or a massive presentation, totally convinced they're maximizing their study time. But ironically, staying awake all night actively makes remembering harder. Here's why. It's actually during sleep that your brain goes to work organizing and storing everything you learned during the day. Without sufficient, high-quality sleep, a huge chunk of that hard-earned information literally never makes it into your long-term memory. So please, don't sacrifice your sleep. It is quite literally your secret weapon. Another biological reality we just have to face is that multitasking, it's a total myth. Our brains simply do not work that way. Every single time you check your phone while you're trying to learn, you are actively destroying your concentration. You might think, oh, it's just a quick glance at a text, but it's not harmless. It creates this fragmented learning experience and forces your brain's focus engine to completely restart, which severely sabotages your retention.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the sweet spot for deep focus. To truly learn, science suggests dialing in for exactly 25 to 50 minutes. Put your phone entirely in another room, eliminate all the distractions, and just immerse yourself in the material for that specific block of time. After that, take a short, deliberate break. This rhythm of intense, unbroken deep focus followed by actual rest is the exact formula that creates incredibly strong memories.
Section 5, The Power of Story, Making Information Unforgettable. Here's the thing. The human mind has evolved to remember narratives and visuals, not giant spreadsheets of data. If you want to make something stick, turn boring information into a picture or even a short, completely bizarre story. As the saying goes, the stranger the image, the easier it is to remember. For example, if you need to remember to buy milk and eggs, don't just make a list. Picture a giant, man-sized chicken swimming the backstroke in a pool of milk. Yeah, it's totally weird, but I guarantee you won't forget it. This is exactly why world memory champions don't just sit around repeating lists of numbers. They use these vivid, bizarre visualization techniques to lock data into their minds permanently.
So the crucial point is this. If you want to remember anything for years to come, you've got to rely on science, not just brute force. Let's rapidly lock in these 7 rules to take with you. Number 1, use active recall and force your brain to sweat. Number 2, review with spaced repetition. 3, use the Feynman Technique to teach what you're learning. 4, build connections to things you already know. 5, protect your sleep so your brain can actually store the data. 6, absolutely eliminate distractions for deep focus. And 7, use stories and vivid visualization to make it stick.
We have covered a ton of ground today, but I really want to leave you with this final provocative thought. Your memory is not a fixed genetic trait. You aren't permanently stuck with a bad memory. Your memory is a skill, and just like going to the gym and lifting weights, it's a skill that gets exponentially stronger the more you train it using the right techniques. You now have the ultimate toolkit, so the only question left is, what will you train your mind to remember? Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and hey, happy learning!